Trump has created a board of peace to govern Gaza. And spoiler alert, there are no Palestinians on any of it. And there's like a board of peace to which he has invited seemingly the most random heads of state or members of state to be in it. So Donald Trump will obviously chair the board, but invited are, do you know what? Let's make it a quiz again, very quickly. Tell me who you think has been invited. What other countries have been invited to be on the board of peace? Okay, not the executive boards. There are executive boards, of which you will have already heard that people like Tony Blair, Steve Witkoff, Marco Rubio are all being invited to be on there. There's also a Gaza executive board, which, by the way, has at least 2 women on it. 2 women on it. But for the board of peace, any prizes to which countries have been invited to be on the board of peace? Like, because I read this and went, huh? There's only one name on there that I went, oh yeah. By the way, huge clue, none of them are the UK. The only British representative in all of this is Tony Blair, which just, again, to just sort of go, well, to be fair, the UK did have a bit of a hand in causing the whole, kerfuffle in the Middle East to begin with. So maybe we don't want them coming in again. But to have the only person from the UK be our largest and most criminal warmonger of the last 30, really? Oh yeah, that's out of everybody that you could have had from I would have accepted Liz Truss over Tony Blair. I would have said, you know what, send Liz Truss over there. Yeah, let her trickle down economics. Let's see how that works, all right, in a desert. Send her. But no, Tony Blair, yeah. Wow. So here we go. Saudi Arabia, Israel, Russia. No, Israel actually is not happy with this board of peace. They had a number of stipulations, which Trump has, I think, quite rightly ignored. Netanyahu has said, this is not what we want. It's weird because Netanyahu, on the one hand, Israel has said, I don't want you working with anybody who used to be in charge. So you can't, and no one from Hamas, no one from the PA, the Palestinian Authority, none of that. But then at the same time, Israel's also saying, hang on, why are there no Palestinians running? So it's an interesting dichotomy there, but not Israel. Russia, no. Russia, busy. Russia's super busy right now. Russia is going, is still heavily shelling and taking out Ukraine's energy infrastructure right now, which is a problem. And oh my goodness, an interesting thing came up on the internet. So the woman that was in charge of Ukrainian relations back in 2019 came back to the U.S. and reported that Russia had kind of said, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, hey, you know what? We'll look the other way on Venezuela if you let us do what we want in Ukraine. And of course, at the time she went, absolutely not. You do not get to do what you want in Ukraine. That is not happening, right? 2019, that nudge, nudge, wink, wink happened. And then what happens now in 2026? America goes into Venezuela, decapitates that regime, but then pretty much leaves it in place anyway. Russia goes, oh, what happened? That oil tanker? Oh, no. Oh, you're right. That wasn't mine. Oh, yeah, sorry. Put my flag on it. Didn't mean to. Have it. You know who's pissed? China. China's pissed because China didn't know that it was happening, but clearly Russia did. Even the Russian missiles that were given to Venezuela to protect it against some kind of, stealth incoming attack, they weren't connected. They weren't connected to the radar array, so they didn't work. So the Russians had been slowly taking their people out of Venezuela for a month leading up to this. The Russians kind of knew that America was coming into the Caribbean and reopening bases in places that they hadn't opened them in a while. They knew all of this. They never told China. China, literally the day that he got kidnapped, had sent a convoy to do trade talks with Venezuela. They had no idea, which is making China rethink whether or not it wants to still partner with Russia, which is super ox because they share a massive border. But I think we're seeing shifts, which also propped up by the fact that Mark Carney from Canada has gone to China and has done another little tradey deal, because China is really starting to rethink whether they want to be associated with militaristic powers, with like Iran, like Russia, like Venezuela kind of was, versus actually going back to the more EU way of doing things, which is let's talk money, let's talk trade, let's just talk regulations and things like that. So we might be seeing an interesting shift, and we might see the big power that is China slowly, because TikTok sells a lot of little random bits of shit to the EU. Who knows? Maybe that'll win in the end. But let me tell you, so Saudi Arabia, Israel, Russia, did Saudi turn them down? You know what, Mike? I do not know the answer to that, but I'll tell you this. Canada has been invited to the Board of Peace. Totally get that one. I'm like, that one makes sense. Yes, that makes sense. So Mark Carney was invited and says he will participate as a founding member. Albania. Who had Albania on their bingo card for being on the Board of Peace? Argentina, which is surprising and not surprising. It's surprising in that, who the hell is he on the world stage? He's nobody. He just had to take a $15 billion payout from the U.S. But then you went, oh, you just took a $15 billion payout from the U.S. So, of course, you are now puppet master puppet. Like a puppet on a stringy. Paraguay, who's also part of the Mercosur trade agreement. Mercosur. Trade agreement, but interestingly, expressed his gratitude and assumed the responsibility with honor.